Hey guys, Stock Saturday, and it's a very slow week. It doesn't get much slower than this, I don't think. £500 down on the week, so less than 0.5%. Not too much move. There's a few sort of movers up and down. Big tech sort of not doing too well. Your Googles and Meta platforms down quite a bit. Some of the miners doing all right, but yeah, let's have a look a bit at the news. So I did actually report last week on Broadcom. Realised that was their third quarter earnings, because they do theirs quite out of sequence. So they have actually released their fourth quarter earnings this week. And yeah, again, just having a look through, looks very good. Revenue up year on year, but also quarter on quarter. If you compare those, profits looking really good. I like this, 4.6 billion in cash from operations, and spent 122 million on capex. So they really don't have a lot to be sort of putting back into the business. Paid a dividend of $4.10, totaling $1.7 billion. And yeah, they're still doing buybacks, and that's sort of basically what they spend a great deal of their money on. So they did buy VMware earlier in the year, which was quite a big deal. They do sort of a lot of this growth by acquisition. I think it was about $60 billion. But as far as sort of reinvesting money into growing the business, it doesn't seem like they really need to. So that's pretty good. All the money can basically go on dividends, buybacks, or buying another company. So very happy. Just looking at the TSMC monthly revenue as well, that's come out for November. So just sort of in the semiconductor space, I like to keep an eye on TSMC, because they provide an awful lot of the chips for the sort of fabless companies, AMD and Nvidia and Apple especially. And 222 billion for November, which is 50% up on the previous year. So they've sort of had a couple of months of sort of 30 odd percent, 18% this year. But yeah, back to sort of 50% year on year. They are putting prices up. There's sort of been some 20% raises over the last year. But yeah, 50% obviously indicates that it's organic growth as well. So people sort of thinking the semiconductor industry is, dying and going into a bear market is maybe a little premature. Unless they're selling these for, lower prices than they would have previously indicated, then I think this is kind of an indication of Q4 profits, Q4 earnings, sort of ahead of time. I don't know whether everybody does really look at these. I mean, you're not going to find out Q4 earnings until sort of January time. So I quite like this as a sort of as most up to date as you can get numbers, and a nice indication. I thought I'll just have a look at some of the main commodities that I'm affected by as well. Natural gas and oil with Shell, and that does sort of affect most of the miners as well, sort of affecting electricity prices. And yeah, that's sort of come down since the peak, and sort of ticking up slightly in the last week, but still sort of at a reasonably low level. This is US natural gas, so different countries have different prices. UK sort of not having a great time of it at the moment, and similar for Europe. But yeah, people sort of tend to focus on the US price. Oil has sort of come down a fair bit, and another bit more in the last week or so, down to sort of $77. So yeah, from the sort of highs up, 120 earlier this year, just after the sort of war broke out, it's come down a hell of a lot. Possibly expecting this to come back up with China sort of potentially reopening up, and sort of the US not releasing their reserves. They may need to be buying back their reserves, so they become a net buyer again. The China sort of opening up could lead to more demand, and yeah, we could be getting a rising oil price again, which wouldn't be great for inflation potentially and various other things. Just sort of looking at the Rio Tinto side of things, so it looks like potentially we saw the bottom in iron ore, which would be good for them. Back up to sort of 110 now from the very low 80s. So that was a fairly spike low. And yeah, again, sort of China demand I would expect. Copper looking kind of similar. Did sort of bottom earlier in the year at sort of 325. Now at 387. Pretty good. Cobalt has been sort of flat, not quite as liquid a market as the others. So it's been flat for a few months now. Aluminium, again, sort of a Rio Tinto mainstay. Up from the lows in September again. Not quite as up as the others, but still looking pretty good. And sort of on a 5-year chart, still looking pretty good. Well up on pre-pandemic, so not too bad. Zinc doing reasonably well, again sort of up from the lows. They do all seem to be sort of following a pattern, whether this is dollar weakness, could possibly be. A lot of these commodities are obviously priced in dollars, so the dollar finally sort of topping out and coming down over the last month or so will have helped them. Nickel, again, similar. They had the sort of short squeeze, strange spike earlier on in the year, and that sort of appears to have bottomed and is coming back up again. So that'll help Vale and Glencore, which is pretty good. And rhodium, the Sylvania platinum, big money maker, unfortunately is still slightly down. Yeah, we kind of need more car demand and more sort of hybrid demand, I would guess. But you never know what happens with rhodium. It's very sort of thinly traded, low volume market from what I gather. But yeah, we'll see. On the sort of obviously on the 5-year, it's still way up from sort of pre-pandemic, so could still do well and is still profitable. Not too much news sort of came out this week. People were sort of focusing on the ISM non-manufacturing PMI, so this sort of indicator of the service industry inflation in the US, sort of money being spent on various things in the obviously non-manufacturing sectors. So America is sort of largely a service country. Yeah, not too much else. Halifax house price index for November sort of expected to be minus 0.2% on the month's house prices, and that was minus 2.3%. So that's quite a big drop for a month, really. We'll have to see sort of how they go. These put the yearly down. Last month was 8% up year on year. It's now 4.7. So that's sort of coming down a reasonable amount. Potentially sort of topped in house prices. Always best to look at the monthlies rather than the year on year, I think. And yeah, the ROCS house price balance. So this is how many surveyors are reporting lower prices versus higher or flat. That was expected to be 10% down. That was 25% down, but no surprise, people are sort of lowering prices. Obviously, you can see the actual prices going down. Jobless claims in the US slightly worse than expected. And inflation, ever so slightly. This is only PPI, not the proper sort of inflation numbers, but yeah, they were slightly higher than expected. And some people say if the PPI is high, then the proper sort of inflation numbers next week could be high. So we'll see. Yeah, next week we have got a big news week. So you've got proper CPI numbers in the US. You got the FOMC meeting, which is Thursday, I believe, Wednesday and Thursday. So that'll be big. Yes, Fed interest rate decision on Wednesday the 14th. So expected to be 0.5%, but it'll be more sort of, if it is 0.5%, the discussion afterwards and sort of what they're saying will come next. And just, yeah, a quick look at the portfolio. So as you say, sort of Google and Meta platforms down about 7% for the week. Not doing too well. Shell down a little bit. Rio Tinto up nearly 5%, so that's pretty good. Prosus up 4% for the week, so that's doing pretty well now. Stellantis, 6% drop for the week. A bit of sort of bad news coming out from them, having to shut a factory that makes one of the Jeeps. Looks like they're going to be closing it down, maybe not sort of sacking everyone. They're coming out with sort of 1 or 2 new electric vehicles and sort of 1 or 2 hybrid vehicles. So potentially some of those employees can go over there, but yeah, they have said there are going to be some layoffs, so that's a bit of a shame. Was never obviously expecting this to be plain sailing. It was sort of transitioning 7.5 million cars a year over to electric. They're not all going to be retained, I wouldn't have thought. They may not end up selling even, 5 million electric once the sort of transition is done. But yeah, it's not the worst move. Cost cutting, they're sort of saying this could give them a bit more cash to push into the EVs. So we'll see. The Jeep numbers sort of weren't looking too bad overall the last year, but they're down from before, so they decided to shut it. And yeah, not too much move in much of the other stocks, sort of 1 or 2% here and there. And looking at the ISA, so I did finally get the Sylvania Platinum dividend come through, £964, and yeah, I put that all into Silvergate Capital along with sort of £100 of the dividends that were already in there. So this is the crypto focused bank, sort of been largely hit down in the bear market, but still sort of makes a rather huge amount of money, sort of 40 to 50% net profit even in the last couple of quarters. While sort of obviously the last quarter, Bitcoin has been down 70 odd percent, 60 to 70%, dropped a little bit further since then, but it was down sort of 60 or 70% from the top in that quarter, and they were still making 50% net profit. So I like that. This was sort of a high riding stock. It was in the 200s sort of late last year, so yeah, I thought that was a decent buy. We have had some very recent news on them that the competitor Signature Bank have sort of looking like they're going to be backing out largely of crypto. They said probably about 10 billions worth of deposits they're looking to sort of unwind, and yeah, they could potentially, some of them come over to Silvergate. I can't imagine they're just going to get out completely if this is crypto exchanges and that sort of thing. So potentially a bit of bullish news. The REITs largely sort of unchanged. Tritax Eurobox down a little, but not too much, 3 or 4% I think it was. Yeah, that's sort of pretty much the ISA, not a huge amount of change. And the other ISA has sort of barely moved. Atalaya Mining actually doing pretty well, to be honest, with the sort of copper price rising, and from the looks of it, Spanish electricity sort of coming right down, oil coming right down as well. So yeah, they're doing pretty well. Was hoping to sort of maybe increase the position at some point, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. Still waiting to transfer this ISA to Interactive Brokers, but that doesn't seem to be coming anytime soon, so that's frustrating. And the Chinese tech on Interactive Brokers is largely flat for the week. So yeah, that's the portfolio for the week. Let me know your thoughts if you're buying anything, if your portfolio's done anything but flat for the week compared to mine, and like and subscribe. See you soon.